Welcome back to Barry Charles Podcast. On today's video, you will learn about a tear-jerking story, a bit of suspense, a sad, possibly sad subject that some of us may have gone through in the past or something similar. My guest today is Lou Roughton. Um, and how are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, so to start this podcast, can you tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, where you were born, some childhood memories?
Sure. I was born in Kawerau, but I've spent most of my life in Hamilton. So I went to school here around the Hamilton area. And as a kid, presumed I had like everyone else, had a normal upbringing, but I guess normal to everyone is different. So I guess I could start off by saying that.
What was one of your favourite things to do growing up with your siblings? Is there some places you went to?
Yes, when we were older, we went to camp at Hahe, which is a lovely beach on the east coast of New Zealand, and we went camping there at the camping ground, and then
Nice.
my parents bought a section, and we camped on our section for a while until they were able to build a garage on it. So we had lots of fun swimming and walking and
So
biking.
how's the beach there for the people overseas? Is it a place you recommend people to come if they come to New Zealand?
Yeah, it's a popular beach, very good for walks, and great scenery. Yep.
Can you surf there or no?
Probably wouldn't call it a surfing beach.
Okay.
No.
That's all good. How about your teenage early years at school? How did that go?
Yep, good. We backed right onto the high school, so we just popped over to school, and I was a diligent student. Loved going to school.
Have any favourite subjects or ones you didn't like?
Yeah, I liked typing. Hence probably why I'm a typist today, and hated maths. Yeah.
You were brought up in a blended family. Did you see that as normal as you're growing up?
Yeah. So I had 7 siblings, and of a blended family. So I guess to me it was normal, but yeah.
Were you brought up religious?
Yes, our family had a Christian faith, so we went to Sunday school, and then in our later teenage years we went to youth group, which I really liked because we did lots of fun stuff.
How about we go back to when you were 2 years old? Did you know much about the passing of your biological mother at that time?
Yeah, so my mum died when I was 2. My brother was 1 and my older brother was 3. I had an older sister who was about 6 years older than me as well. So I didn't really know my mum at the time because I can't remember anything of that time.
While growing up, did you know anything at all?
Well, as the years went on, and I was about 10, I could hear Dad never talked to us about Mum dying that I can recall.
Yeah.
But Dad remarried, maybe when I was about 3 or 4 maybe, and so I would hear things that my uncles and aunties would say about someone, but I didn't really know who it was, and it took me a while to grasp that my new mum wasn't my real mum, so it took a bit of working out. And
when you did actually find out, were you angry at your parents?
No, I wasn't angry. I just probably wanted to find out more information which I did over the years, yeah.
So what did you end up finding out?
Well, I asked my my mum's biological sister what mum was like, and I asked Dad what mum was like, but Dad would never talk to me about mum. So I think the only things he said was she was a hard worker and that I had lots of similar things to her in my mannerisms. But that's all he didn't really tell me any other stories about mum. I had to get those from my aunties.
Is there anything like, do you think you feel like complete, or is there anything like missing about your biological mum's side?
No, it's not anything missing. Now that I've talked to my aunties about her.
Yeah, so just for you listeners here at home, if you're going through anything similar, if you've lost a mum, a dad, or gone through anything real serious in your life that's a major trauma for you, that you're okay. You are loved by heaps of people. Doesn't matter who was in the wrong, if it was someone else or yourself. If you've done bad things in the past, you can always resurrect yourself and not let the event take over the rest of your life. It's only a small amount of the time, and hopefully you get this out of the podcast, that positivity can come from a tough situation. So as we continue on, Lou, can you just give me maybe a little bit of history into the background of the jobs you worked at?
Sure. I've had probably 4 jobs in my life, as I've stayed at them for quite a long time. So the first one was at the Ministry of Transport, and I was just a clerk giving out licences there, and then I went up into the typing pool, and then my second job was at the fire station, where I did admin work and typed up fire investigations, and I was there for about 16 years, and then I moved on to the Hamilton City Council, where I was executive assistant.
So what did that entail?
Well, I worked for a specific department in the council, which was water drainage and refuse, and so I just typed up reports and did some filing for that section. And then my last job, which I'm still at today, is at the Ministry of Justice, where I'm work at a courthouse, and I transcribe all the evidence in the courtroom.
And you just got a new role recently. You want to talk a little bit about that?
I've just been seconded to a position of the team manager, where I look after the team while my manager is away.
So how many people are?
So there's probably 15 all up, 11 in Hamilton and 4 in Papakura.
Nice. Now we're gonna get more into a little bit of context before the incident happened. So I'd like to thank Lou again for coming on to speak about this for the first time. If you can just discuss how you met Tom and how that all started at the fire service.
Sure. So when I worked at the fire station, we had lots of social functions, and they mainly were in the bar area. Lots of drinking was involved, although I wasn't much of a drinker myself. But one night we had a housey night, and that's where I first met Tom. He was there with his mum and dad. His dad's a firefighter, and his mum and his dad ran a foster home for a while, and they looked after foster children.
Sound like lovely people.
Yeah, and I think Tom was a one of their foster child.
Okay.
He had recently come out of jail. That was his first night out of jail, and he'd had a couple of beers and wasn't used to drinking, so had fallen asleep in the corner.
Okay. So soon after that, the parents sort of convinced you to have a first date. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I think they were trying to get Tom and I together. So they jacked up us to meet, and so I went over to their house for the evening, and it was mainly based around drinking, but I met the whole family and got to know Tom a little bit better, I suppose. They had run out of alcohol, so Tom and I went down and got some more for them at the end of the night before the bottle shop closed.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so how long after that did you go for your second date?
I think it was a week or so later. There was a family function in a hall, and Tom came and picked me up on on a motorbike. So I came in and I introduced him to my parents. I'm not too sure what they thought of him because he, even though he was nicely dressed, he was covered in tattoos. But off we went to our function and drinking and dancing. And on the way, I wasn't really dressed to be on the back of a motorbike, so Tom stopped and gave me his jacket.
That's nice.
And then he dropped me off home afterwards.
Now, nice. How about the courtship after that? How that all end up?
Well, I think it was a time in my life where I'd had enough of being at home and I wanted to be out on my own, so I decided I wanted to go flatting. So I found a flat and got a little bit of furniture together, and I had a glory box which I'd been putting stuff away in readiness to move out of home. So
How did your parents take that? Did they want you to move out?
I don't think they were particularly happy, because I think Tom and I decided that we were going to live together at that same time as well. So yeah, they were a little bit shocked, I think.
Can you tell me the time around around your car, around the car license and stuff like that, with you and Tom?
Oh, well, I had a little wee car that I'd paid off, and because our flat was so close to town, I didn't usually take my car to work. I would normally walk or bike. No, I don't think I had a bike. Probably just walked. And Tom didn't really have a solid job. He only had jobs here and there, so I wasn't working all the time. And often he would ask to borrow my car because I was bored. He was bored, should I say. And I wouldn't let him take it because he didn't have a license. But then I would get home from work and my car wasn't there. He had either found the key to it or he had hot-wired it because he wanted to use it, save him walking. I wasn't really happy about that, so one day I called the police and said it was stolen. But the police weren't really interested because we were in a relationship together, and yeah, they weren't interested in following that up at all.
So, once this happened, did you ever think about leaving him then?
No, not really. I just had to find a way that he wouldn't use the car when I wasn't using it. But other things happened in our relationship that wasn't that good.
How what would you do for like outings and stuff?
We would go and visit his cousin and his girlfriend at their flat, or we would go to the pub for the night. It seemed to revolve around drinking, which wasn't really my thing, but one night I can remember we were at a pub and there was the fire alarm went, so we had to exit the building. So we did this in a big crowd, and I thought I'd grabbed Tom's hand so we could be guided out together, but when I looked down I realised it wasn't Tom's hand, it was his cousin's hand that I was holding. And his cousin...
Whoa. So you were walking out and you thought you were holding Tom's hand and you were holding his cousin. Was he one of his best friends at the time? Or
Yeah, it was probably his best mate, and they happened to be standing close together, and I think he must have put his hand, realising that what I was doing, and thought it would be a bit of a joke. But when Tom saw, he got a bit jealous. So the trip on the way home wasn't that nice. He had drinking a bit much and he wouldn't let me drive home, so I was a little bit scared. On the way home, he got annoyed with the driver behind him, the car behind him. So he slammed on the brakes and he got out of the car and confronted them. And then...
So do you remember at the time if they were like speeding behind them or honking the horn?
I think they might have been following too close to his liking, but he was already in a foul mood from what had happened before.
Did he often get into a rage, Tom?
That's probably the first time I'd ever seen him that bad.
Okay.
And so
he got out of the car. Sorry. So he got out of the car, and what happened?
So he went and confronted the car behind him and abused them. And during this time, I was quite scared as to what was going to happen next. I was contemplating whether I should slip over into the driver's seat and just take off, or what should I do, because I didn't really want him driving my car in his state. But I didn't. And then he came back and hopped in and drove off like a maniac. And he dropped his cousin and his girlfriend off. And then instead of going home, he went and did a tiki tour around the lake and was doing skids, and he just about rolled the car and we ended up in the lake.
Whoa, crazy.
So I was a bit scared, and then finally he drove home after all that. I was a bit scared to go inside because he was so angry, so I thought I would just stay in the car. But after a while he had the keys, but after a while he came down and got me, and he was trying to drag me inside, but I wouldn't go with him. I was hanging onto the rail.
No good.
And then I ended up screaming the place down because I was so scared, and the neighbours called the police. So the police came and he let me go, and they had to talk to him, and I jumped in the car and went home.
Lucky you had good neighbours.
So I guess they got woken up by me. I don't know why I was so scared, but I knew that if I had ended up going inside with him, he would have probably given me a hiding. I wasn't too sure what was going to happen. So a few days...
So what did the police do with that? Did they do anything?
Well, I don't think they did do anything, because he hadn't done anything that bad. But then he would just ring me up and apologise and say he would never do it again. So I would go back to him. And this happened again another time when I was scared and jumped out the bedroom window. And
how high was this bedroom window? Was it one story? Was it two stories?
It was in a different flat, and we
Okay.
So it was the ground floor. So I managed, even though it was quite a high window, it was quite tricky to get out. And I thought he was going to catch me after I'd made an excuse that I wanted to go to bed early. But yes, something happened that night that I got scared and wanted to leave as well, and he wouldn't let me. So that was my way of trying to get around it. And my plan was to escape through the bedroom window, and that happened. So I rang up my friend to come and get me. And then a day or so later, Tom rang me up and apologised, said how sorry he was and he wouldn't do it again. So I always seem to go back, which was in hindsight not a good thing.
What do you think made you go back to him, even though he's been sort of a repeat offender at this stage?
Well, he was always so sorry. And I guess I believed him when he said he wouldn't do it again. But when we moved flats again, I think I'd had enough of his behaviour. So that's when I thought enough was enough. And so I gathered my things and found somewhere else to go and live. And I left him.
Would you say that he was controlling towards you, maybe?
At times he was, yeah. Didn't really
and then like a gentleman at other times?
Yeah, he was nice at other times. So it's up and down.
Okay, so now we've come to what everyone's been waiting for, is the major story part here of this podcast, is the sad event that happened one day in Lou's life. If we can maybe start at where it began in the early morning as you were catching the bus, going along your way.
So a week or so after I'd left him, I'd been busing to work because my car wasn't that reliable. So I would catch the bus to and from work until I'd sorted out my car and what I was going to do. But one day when I was hopping off the bus in town, I jumped off the bus ready to walk 5 minutes to the fire station, and Tom appeared. He grabbed my hand or my wrist and he handed me a note to read.
What was on that note? Do you remember anything of that?
It said, "Come with me, otherwise I will kill you. I have a knife," or something like that.
Did he show you a knife?
He lifted up his jeans and he had a knife tucked into his sock.
Whoa.
So I didn't really know what to do apart from go with him. So I presumed he was upset that I didn't want to be his girlfriend anymore. So as we were walking along back to the flat that we were previously at, I said to him that I needed to ring work to tell them that I wasn't going to be in, because you needed to ring up if you were sick or anything to let them know. And he didn't want me to ring in case I told them what was happening. But then I said I needed to ring them, otherwise I would think something was up. So we went, on the way home, we stopped at a phone booth and I rang my work. And I tried, and he warned me that if I said anything that I would be in trouble and he would use the knife. So I couldn't give it away that I was in trouble. So I tried to tell them that I wouldn't be in today because I was sick. But the person who answered the phone, I didn't call them by their correct name in the hope that they would think that something was up. But of course they didn't. They just carried on with the conversation. And so then they would pass on to my boss that I wasn't going to be in. So after I'd done that, we kept walking back to the flat. And we went down one street where he decided to get the note and rip it up into small pieces. Yeah. And he threw it on the verge. And then a block or two later, we were just about out the flat, but there were some workmen on the side of the road fixing the gutter or something, or the verge. And I tried to look at them in a scared manner to say that I wasn't happy or I was scared without trying to say anything. I was just trying to give them a look. And they were looking back, but they didn't gather that anything was wrong. And I felt I couldn't say anything. And so we just kept walking and we ended up back at the flat.
So, how long would this walk have been? It sounds like it would have been quite a long journey.
Well, probably would have taken us about 45 minutes to an hour to walk there. In the car, it wasn't that long, but I guess when you're walking, it's, a good amount of time.
Yeah. I presume you returned to the flat. What happened when the door was closed? What were you feeling in that moment?
I wondered what was going to happen. So he talked. I think he said to me that he wasn't happy that we had broken up, and so I tried to talk to him about it and think of different ways that I could try and escape while I was there. And one of the things I thought of was maybe we could go to the movies together, and while we're at the movies I could write someone a note, leave a note in the toilets, and then the police would come while we were in the movies. But he agreed to us going to the movies, but then he must have got scared and we ended up not going. So then I had to think of other ways to make him believe that maybe we would get back together. So I said to him that I would be happy to come back and live with him. But I need to go over and get my gear from where I was staying. But I didn't have a car. So finally he agreed that if he called his friend, we could use their car and I could go over and get my stuff and we could carry on with our relationship.
Did anything else happen before that?
Well, I guess during the day, I thought to try and make him believe me. We had sex so that I would try and ease his mind into thinking that I still liked him, but it wasn't my intention ever to return back to him. That was just a ploy on my behalf to try and ease his mind. So I think that might have helped him conclude that, yes, Louise will come back to me. So then his friend came over with his car, his friend and his girlfriend, and then his friend stayed there and his friend's girlfriend took me back to my place to get my gear. But this was never my intention to do this. So on the way to where I was living, I got her to stop at the police station and I told her the story of what had happened to me that day. She couldn't quite believe it. And I told her I wanted to be dropped off at the police station, which she didn't really want to do because she thought that Tom would get into trouble and she would get into trouble, but she did drop me off there. So that's when I told the police my story of what had happened to me that day.
How was that experience, having to walk through the police station door?
I felt quite relieved when I got there, and I knew that I was going to be safe after that point. The friend's girlfriend didn't stay. She went back to the flat and told Tom what I was doing. So he must have scarpered, but I had to go upstairs and give a statement to the detective of what had happened so that they could investigate further. Yeah.
Um, did they grill you?
They did, but in a nice way. Seemed to be very caring, and they seemed to believe everything that I said. And then they'd sent a squad out to look for the note that Tom had ripped up, which they couldn't find all of it, but they did find bits of it which they were able to piece back together because some of it had blown away.
And it's good they found some evidence.
Yeah.
Now, who picked you up?
So after the interview, I rang a friend. Well, she was like my surrogate mum. And whenever I was in trouble, I would probably call her rather than my dad. And she came and got me, and I spent the night at her place.
Did you break down and cry or anything?
I can't really remember. I don't think I did. I was just relieved that the whole thing was over and that I was safe. And but the police weren't able to arrest him because he had left the flat and they didn't know where he was. So they asked me, he would try and contact me. I didn't have a cell phone, so it must have been at work.
Okay.
And the detective in charge of the case asked me that if he did contact me, that would I be able to set up a meeting time so that they could arrest him. And so about a month later, after the event, he contacted me because he wanted to see me. And so I set up a time and a place the next day for him to do that. And
so did you have to call the police?
Yeah, so I called the police that evening, but the detective in charge was off duty. So they tried to contact him so that he was available for the meet the following morning. So my dad and I went to the meeting place together, and my dad was standing on one corner, and there was some undercover policemen standing on the other corner. I was quite scared because I thought that he could see them, but obviously he was happy there just to wait for me to arrive. So I walked up to the meeting spot with them watching me, and
Yep.
I think there might have been 3 police officers and my dad. And once I got to him and said hi, the police officers came up behind me and arrested him.
Okay, so going back a little bit here, were you thinking about yourself when you went to go to this meeting to meet Tom? Weren't you scared that he might do something?
Yeah, I guess I didn't know if he would have a weapon or anything, but I just wanted him to be caught so that he couldn't do it again to anyone else.
Yep.
So I wasn't really thinking of myself.
Yeah, I was just quite surprised to hear that the police would let you go that far, get that close to him.
Yeah, well, the meeting place was on a seat in the middle of a public place, but they would have been about 50 metres away, which isn't far, but a lot could have happened in that time, I suppose.
Yeah, you could have had a knife and stabbed you, or a gun.
Yeah. No.
Did that ever come to your mind before you were meeting him?
Probably not, no. No.
Okay, so after their arrest, how long did was it a long trial or was it pretty quick or?
So he was arrested. I don't know if he was given bail. Not sure. But he ended up pleading guilty. So there was no trial. So I
Okay.
didn't have to go through giving evidence at all, which in hindsight was a really good thing. And he got sentenced to 2.5 years imprisonment.
Okay, so how did you feel at that time when you heard that?
Oh, I felt great. Yep, that he was getting something for what he had done to me, and I felt safe because he wasn't out on the streets.
Yep, and just going back a little bit, when the arrest happened, you obviously that would have been a bit of a surreal moment that this is like finally over.
Yep, I think my dad was worried for me when I was doing that, and I think Tom was surprised that that happened as well when he ended up being handcuffed and taken away. So yeah.
How do you think the police handled the whole case from your point of view?
Um, yeah, the police were really good. I couldn't have faulted them at all. Um, and I felt that they had done a really good job, listened to what I had to say, believed what I said. So, yeah, I was very happy with the outcome.
You're very lucky because there's a lot of people that would, especially in some places around the world, would get laughed at.
Mm.
So you're very lucky in that. Um, so so after this kidnap over the next year or so, um, had your life changed in terms of like looking over your shoulder or knowing to catch the bus or anything like that?
Well, I guess um, it hadn't changed that much while I was in prison. The police officers told me that they would let me know when he came out of prison. So I think it was at that time I felt a little bit cautious and I was scared to catch the bus again. So I would bike to work every day. Um, so I think he was out in 2 years. And I was a little bit scared about that time whether he'd try and contact me again.
Had you moved on to another relationship by then?
No, I was still single, but I did. Probably I didn't move on to my next relationship until about 3 years after that.
Okay, so how did you ever see Tom again?
No, I never saw him again, although after the police told me that he was out, I wondered if he came back to Hamilton. And there were a couple of times where I thought I might have seen him from a distance, and my heart skipped a beat or two when I thought it was him, but I wasn't sure whether it was or not because he was quite a way away. So yeah.
How about your how about the how about the parents of Tom? How did they take it when they found out about it? Because especially you were working with the dad.
Yeah, they were very sympathetic to me, and they were quite surprised that that had happened, and they were really good about it actually. As I still was working with the dad. Yep.
Yep. And how was your boss at that time when it all happened?
Yeah, I had to tell my boss what had happened and why I was away, and so when I told him, he was very supportive. He had friends in the police force that he would ask questions with, so he would give me some information here and there as well, so that was really helpful.
Okay, so this one's might be a little bit touchy, but did you ever talk to the person you were talking on the phone with on the phone booth?
No, I actually never mentioned it to him that what had happened. I only explained it to my boss because I didn't want to tell everyone what had happened.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough. But
yeah.
That would have been an interesting conversation.
I suppose so. Yeah.
So, does it still affect you at all now?
I don't think it does. I think it's just a distant memory now because it probably happened maybe 40 years ago. Um, I was able just to get on with my life. I managed to meet um, a nice person after that I went out with,
That's good.
and ended up marrying. So um, I was lucky in that way, and I haven't really let it affect my life.
In hindsight, do you think you could see any signs of this kidnapping happening?
Um, no signs at all. Um, no. Um, I just thought that um, he wasn't a very nice person now and again, but I never thought it would go this far. Yeah.
For the listeners out there, if anyone else has been in this situation or similar situation, do you have any advice for them?
Um, I don't know. I guess every situation's different, and you just deal with it as best as you can. Some might need counselling, but I didn't need any. So I just, yeah, don't know if I have any advice. Um, in hindsight, I could have done things differently. I guess.
Yep.
Whether if it happened again today, would I do it differently? Depends. I guess I could have called out a bit earlier. I don't know if that would have changed anything. So yeah.
So now, if we come to the future now, um, how has your life been? I know it's been a long time, 40 odd years, but what's some positive things that have happened in your life since?
Well, I suppose I've been able to just marry, and I had a couple of stepchildren. I've just enjoyed my life and my sports, and just
So, what's some of the sports you've played?
I used to play a lot of indoor netball back in the day, and now I'm currently playing outdoor bowls, which I love. So yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Have you won many competitions or?
Last year I had a really good season. Probably one of my best seasons. So I guess I've been playing for about 18 years. So yeah, it's been good.
Nice, nice. Um, okay. I think that just about wraps it up here on the podcast today. I'd like to thank Lou very much for coming along and joining in on this conversation. I know it's a bit of a hard conversation for some people to hear, but I hope a lot of people got enjoyment out of it and maybe learn some lessons in the future in their relationships going forward. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Lou?
No, not really.
Oh, thank you very much for joining the Barry Charles podcast, and we'll have many more videos like this to come in a range of genres. And until next time, have a lovely day out there.